Okay, so one other thing, this is like from ancient work that was done in other muscle diseases, but when I talked about the secondary things that happen that we want to protect against, that kind of goes along with this scheme. So that if you have muscle weakness that's imbalanced across joints, but you have really good coordination and balance, which I know everyone that I've ever met with Pompeii does, then you get very good about compensating. So what people do, I don't know if you've ever thought about what you do, but you shift your weight so your line of gravity helps lock a joint and helps you sort of help the muscles out biomechanically. So for example, if you have difficulty with, you don't have full strength in your hip extensors, which are the muscles on the back, right? And so it's hard to sort of pull down with those muscles and keep your hips straight and keep yourself standing up. If that's hard, then a smart thing to do, if you have good coordination, is you lean backwards a little, because that makes your line of gravity go behind the hip joint and it helps keep it straight. So there are a million different sort of compensatory mechanisms that people use to help their muscles work as efficiently as possible. That's all fantastic. And I never have to teach anybody that. People figure that out by themselves. The thing to be aware of is that can put you in a position where some of your other muscles may get tight or stiff, and then it's harder to move. So there's the whole strengthening issue, but then there's a flexibility issue that's important to sort of assess and make sure that you have the right amount of flexibility in your body so you can move easily. So is this, I can't tell if you all know this already. You probably could do this lecture yourself. Okay, so if you want to, in your own self, if you want to understand that really well, then the thing to do is to have somebody help you assess, or you know, where are the areas where you have the most trouble with strength, and where are the areas that you need to make sure that you keep stretched out so you can move efficiently. So you probably all know this too. These are the classic places that people have trouble with not enough strength, you know, in Pompeii. And so, you know, in the lower extremities mostly, in the muscles around your pelvic girdle, you probably know all that. Also, in the spinal extensors, sometimes people have weakness, so you probably know this whole list. Okay. Okay, and that's been studied pretty well, so if you go to a physical therapist, they should be able to sort of help you figure out where you are in this, if that's helpful information to follow over time. So for me, if you have somebody helping you stretch, to me, if somebody was stretching my leg, for example, and I told them to stop and they didn't stop, that seems rather abusive to me. So I think even with little kids, you get them training early to where they tell you, no, that's too much, and then you stop. And then you stretch. They tell you when you can stretch them a little bit more. And with children, if you start young, they get to be the experts on stretching, and they'll say, "No, I think you need to stretch that muscle a little more." And I always listen to what they tell me. So usually right. Okay, so with adults, it can be less complicated, because if you have reached, the closer you've gotten to your full growth before you experience any weakness, the more safe your muscles and your bones are that they sort of formed normally, you know, up until then. So that's kind of a safety thing. So that's good. Makes life a little bit easier. The younger you are, the more it could have affected your bones along the way. So that's one thing. With adults, if you're going to start stretching, you have to consider the second paragraph, which is that just because somebody has Pompeii doesn't mean they couldn't have also developed arthritis somewhere. So you have to, you know, pay attention to other things that might be going on in your body. And there's a need to balance flexibility with stability. So if you are relying on being a little bit stiff in one muscle group because it helps you stand up and keep your back straight, you don't necessarily want to stretch that out too much, because then you'll be a little too flexible. So the bottom line for stretching is to remember that it's based on hours per day in a certain position, and there's some balance you should achieve between stretching out enough that you can move as easily as possible and not stretching out too much so you're too loose.